Hello, check, check, sound check, light check, everything check. Putting on my bracelets. I'll show you what I'm putting on. I think this one's carnelian. It's got all these different shades of carnelian. I made that, the one on the left wrist. And then the one on the right wrist is amethyst, or actually, no, it's probably fluorite because it's green and purple. Made that one too. And then this one I made, let's see, which wrist should I put this one on? It's like light green and light, kind of a buttercream yellow. So it's citrine. The buttercream yellow is citrine. I'm not sure what the semi-precious gemstone is that's green. It might even just be glass. There's some iridescent glass in there too. And then the stone, I'm really not sure. Maybe, I don't know if anybody wants to take a guess. I don't think it's turquoise. It's too light green to be turquoise. I used to know all my stones, and then if I didn't know them, I would just look them up, and I'm sure it's easier than ever on the interweb. But, you know, I actually try to not do everything on the interweb, believe it or not, since I'm already on so much with my Anna Bees, with my my YouTube, and then with my Google. Anna Bees, how are you today, my dear? And let me explain to you, I've got my laptop on a lazy Susan, so I don't know if people noticed that yesterday, that it kind of moves like that. You see how it goes dee 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 dee. So hopefully I won't be bumping it while I'm live. How's the lighting, my dear? Hi, Jazz and everyone. Very pretty bracelet. Thank you. I love them. And what earrings do I have on? Oh, I made these. They're, again, probably fluorite, and I'm not sure the little tiny gemstones. I don't even really worry about what the stones are. I love kind of a light mossy sage green and buttercream yellow. Those are kind of my colors much of the time for home decor as well. Can you see it? It's kind of hard to see. But anyway, sometimes less is more. Feeling somewhat better. I liked the video, but it's not showing up. Lighting is good. Thank you for liking the video, and thank you for letting me know. Is the sound okay? Let's see. I think I've got it. So it looked like yesterday that I was like leaning over in the video. I'm like, how do I change that? I guess it's this lazy Susan thing. Like, I just got to be straight on. So please, I like the video. Sound is good. Awesome. Thank you, my dear. And everything everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, learn something, be educational. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an infotainment platform. I've got a lot that I want to talk about today. I want to talk about some hearings that are going on right now, or a hearing that's going on right now with Pete Hegseth. And it's bizarre. It's truly bizarre. And then I want to read to you the lawsuit that I found, that I put in the title, the Jane Doe lawsuit, claiming that she was raped at 13 years old by both little E and little T at a handful of parties that they would take her to. Let me just say, of course, she could be lying, right? She might have filed this lawsuit because she's insane and she wants death threats and she's just trying to get money. She filed it twice and she withdrew it twice. And allegedly she withdrew it twice because she was getting death threats. And lo and behold, like, all the victims got death threats. Virginia Giuffre got death threats. Huh. Is it a quinky dink? Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might love my channel, and turn on your notification bell to ring, and subscribe if you're not subscribed, or please check to make sure that you are. If you are subscribed, make sure that you still are. And I don't know if anybody was wondering about the little statues that I have over here. Probably nobody was wondering, but I'm going to show them off because they're cute. I just picked them up at an estate sale a few days ago. They're really neat. I don't know what country they're from, but they're very ethnic. They're probably from, I don't know, India. Let's just say India. So this is kind of like a warrior. It's a warrior and his horse. That's what it is. See, at first I thought it was more like a yoga kind of thing, but now that I take a closer look, I can see that it's a warrior, and I think it's got some Japanese or Chinese symbols. So maybe it was made in China or Japan. I'll have to look up those symbols and what they mean. See, they're like right across the bottom there, but I'm sure you can't see them. I can barely see them. Anyway, how are they placed? Let's get right into this crap. I was thinking India, but I don't know. Well, and yeah, they definitely have it like an India vibe to me. And so maybe doesn't China share a border with India? Maybe it's like near the border. So maybe it was made in India, but it's a Chinese warrior or something. I don't know. You know, I'm not a very worldly person. I am. I would have thought I would have traveled a lot internationally by now in my lifetime. When I was 18, 19, I fully had plans to study abroad before I was done with school. But then I transferred schools from Miami University here in Ohio to Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. And that was insane. Moving across the country when I was 19 years old, all by my lonesome on my own tab. I paid all my own bills. I paid for the move. I paid for school. I paid for everything. So, yeah, the idea of working or, I mean, study abroad, it just like I still had the idea, but it didn't pan out. I mean, sure, I was smoking a lot of weed, but that wouldn't have stopped anybody, right? But I was having trouble meeting my goals. So my goal was to get to graduate school. And I have been sober since my senior year. Yeah, my senior year of college, because I thought, my God, what am I doing? I'm almost done with college and I'm a stoner. So that's why I went into recovery. And I've been in recovery for like 35 years now. So many years I've lost track. It was 1989. So yeah, I'm in my 36th year. In October, it'll be 36 years. I didn't think I'd make it 4 days. I mean, seriously, on the fourth day, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. But here I am. That was when I decided to get professional help. I went through an intensive outpatient program, and I'm so grateful. Sobriety is the best gift in the world that you can give yourself and the world, I think. When I was young, I wanted to travel the world. Yeah, and maybe that's why I can identify so much with the whole Amanda Knox case, because she was from Seattle and she went to University of Washington and she did the study abroad in Italy. And I don't I think that I believed her spin on it until a few years ago when I watched a whole bunch of true crime rocket science videos, because that man, Nick, he's written, I think now half a dozen books on the case. He's gone there to Perugia, or whatever the name of the town is. And he convinced me, and I've done a lot more of my own research. She is so effing guilty. She's so guilty. But I think I identified with her at first because, you know, we both played soccer. We both were very strong academically. We were both freaking stoners. We both liked the boys. We were both guy crazy, basically. Yeah, I totally identified with her. So thank goodness Nick straightened me out. Thank you, True Crime Rocket Science. Shout out. How frightening. I mean, a lot of people believe her, a lot of people don't. And, I mean, you just have to make that assessment and decision for yourself. But yeah, anyway, what are the other topics? Um, oh my goodness, Anna Bees, you believed Amanda Knox. You know why we believed Amanda Knox, and this is why Nick broke through to me, is that he revealed to me that CNN not only paid her legal bills, they also paid for her family's travel, because this story was great for their sales, great for their network, and great for advertisement. Basically, it was great for everything, but it was also really bad for American students to look so bad in this international, basically it's a college town, it's like a university town, and college kids go there from all over the world, and they already hate Americans because we're like pigs to them. And then Amanda kind of embodied like massive mega pig, and she just so happens to be a Trumpster. Shocking, right? And then yeah, it was really important that at the time, it was really important to try to save our country's reputation. Sort of like with the O.J. Simpson case, how it was really important for the verdict to come back not guilty, to save Los Angeles from another race riot. And yeah, we're getting off track. Did you? Sorry, and it's all me. It's all my fault. I'm not saying you did anything wrong, my dear. I'm so glad that you're feeling better. Me too. Me too. Have you heard about the truck from the parade in DC that killed a woman, Annabese? I heard nothing about it until today. It was not at the parade. It was 2 days after the parade, when they were like trying to basically put the tank away. I think it was a tank, and then an SUV. So this woman, this 39-year-old woman whose name is Sierra Nicole Smith, the story is that she was trying to cross the street and she tripped and fell, and then she got rolled over, and then she got run over, and then law enforcement noticed her on the ground and she was unresponsive and not breathing. That's the story. Pretty heinous. I wonder if there's videotape, like surveillance footage of it. But I'm just curious why it wasn't in the news yesterday. I mean, and it might have been and I just missed it, but it didn't seem like it had that big of a profile today when I happened to, stumble across it. I was like, wait, what? Because I think I was looking up the fatality from the No King's Day parade. There was that one guy that was wounded with a firearm and did not survive in Salt Lake City. And that's a very convoluted story, as far as I can tell, extremely convoluted. And I have more information too, of course, about the Minnesota situation and how that kind of unfolded. I mean, I'm sure we'll get more and more information as the days go on. It's so convoluted. Basically, and I read to you the chronology of events, but the third house that the gunman went to, the senator was home, but she didn't wake up, and there was nothing that took place as far as with the villain, because law enforcement rolled up on him. And this female police officer said that she drove up to his window to try to speak with him. He was sitting in the driver's seat of his SUV, and she rolled her window down and was trying to talk with him, and he was just staring straight ahead. So she called for backup, and then by the time backup got there, he was gone, which, like, I don't know why she wouldn't have followed him. I just thought of that just now. So I guess she was probably on duty alone from the way she tells the story, that she was maybe in her cruiser by herself. And yeah, she should have followed him. That's weird. Anyway, I mean, I don't want to criticize the law enforcement there because I think she saved that senator's life. And then he went to the fourth house. So there was the two homes where he unloaded his firearms into the victims. So the one house where they survived, the one house where they didn't survive. Then there was a house that he stopped at that the family was on vacation. And then there was this house that he stopped at that law enforcement intervened. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. And then to clarify, when law enforcement got to Senator, I mean, sorry, not Senator, the representative, I'm so bad with names. It's Senator Hoffman and Representative Hortman. Very similar. So when they got to Melissa Hortman's house, when I was reading the chronology of events, and I got some clarity afterwards doing some more research, it sounds like the police, when they got there, that he hadn't even gone in yet, that he was on the doorstep. And then he exchanged fire with them, and then he shot through the door, went in, shot the husband, Mark Hortman, is that right? And that the law enforcement could see from where they were, they could see him get shot because there was like a window by the door. And then I just want to make sure I'm getting his name right. Yeah, Mark Hortman and Melissa Hortman. So after he gained entry to the house, shot the husband, then he was out of sight from the doorway from where law enforcement could see him. And that's when he subsequently unalived Melissa and then escaped out the back. And so, they did not go into the home because they didn't know who was in there, how many people were in there, deceased or alive. They waited, I think, for backup before they went in there. And then I think they had a robot go in there first. That's usually how they do it. Like they probably had a SWAT team immediately and then had a robot go in. So thank goodness that no law enforcement were injured or lives taken. But anyway, so yeah, the thing that I really wanted to talk about today is the lawsuit and the Hegseth hearing. That was weird. I'll describe that real quick. The Hegseth hearing was sort of like a show where they were saying, "Wow, Pete, you've done such a great job. Tell us how you do it." And the numbers for recruitment for the Army are higher than they've been in 20 years. And they've been going up since the day that Trumpster Fire was elected. And they've gone up every day since then, essentially. I'm paraphrasing and maybe I'm exaggerating. But they said that the numbers of recruits for the Army have doubled since, I don't know, I guess since the election. But I thought, oh, wait, are they just beefing up the Army with their MAGA people? It sounds like it. He's just like, oh, yeah, it's because all these people are so excited about Trumpster Fire being the leader. So now that he's the dear leader, they're happy to serve, whereas they didn't want to serve with that old administration that sucked. So we know that MAGA people have been beefing up all of the election polls across the country for at least the last 4 years, if not more than that. And now, if that's true, my mind goes straight to the military being used against the citizens, the way it's been kind of panning out there in Los Angeles. I need to sit up straight and read you this lawsuit, but let me give you a trigger warning. It is like pornographic, in my opinion. And I don't think I'm a prude. I mean, I don't think I'm a prude at all, but it's pretty disgusting. I mean, I'm just not into grape. I can't stand any kind of grape scene in a movie. I will literally turn it off. I will leave. I'm just like, you don't need to show the graphics. You can just allude to the fact and get the idea across if you have good writers and good actors and all that stuff. But if you don't, then yeah, you might want to show the gruesomeness of it. And honestly, I think a lot of people get their rocks off and they want to see that. You're the one who brought things that I didn't know to me. Well, I'm really glad. I mean, that's why I continue to do my channel, even though it's, my numbers are so dismal. I'm just happy to have numbers and I'm just happy to have my channel. And, it could be discouraging, but I'm in it for my creativity and for my self-expression and to communicate to other people what I think is important. And so as long as I'm accomplishing that with one person, that's all that matters to me. I'm totally honest. So, it's nice to know that because you're here and you interact with me, Anna Bees. Because if it was just, the same numbers of views, but not anybody interacting with me, I wouldn't know if those were trolls or bots or people that just clicked on and off. Most people don't sit and watch through entire videos, self included. I'm not criticizing anybody. I mean, there's just too much to watch. You kind of get what you want out of it and then you go on to the next one. Sometimes I try to finish them, but not always. You know what? I need to turn my fan on. One sec. I'm here. Oh, and it always does this. It messes with me. I was hoping it wouldn't mess with me so it doesn't take me an extra long time. I have to unplug it and plug it back in, and now it's working. Okay, I'm still here. And I like to keep the fans on a lower level so that they're not loud. But I do need to have the fans on me when I'm sitting here working so hard. It's like a workout. I'm so happy to have my chair back. I've tried the comfy chair before. It just does not work. I saw it today too. Oh, you saw the thing about the woman, Sarah Nicole Smith. Or did you see the thing about Pete Hegseth? That was just so weird. It was so staged. It was sort of like when that Brian Glenn asks questions from Trumpster Fire at his pressers. Brian Glenn is a fake journalist, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, who is the one who asked Vladimir Zelensky why he doesn't wear a suit. That MF, when he asks questions like, Mr. Trump, can you tell us why you're so awesome? I have a question. Can you tell us why your hair looks so great today? I mean, he just has the stupidest questions. That's what this whole thing with the Senate hearing was like, in my opinion. I'm sure there's surveillance video, but we may never see it. Yeah, in my opinion, Anna Bees, they really try to make it sound like she is kind of homeless or that it's her own fault because she tripped and fell and because she was not in anyone's company. For all we know, she was on her way to work. I mean, sure, it could be a homeless person, but the way it was described, in my opinion, they were just being dismissive. Like, oh, well, she tripped and fell and nobody was with her and, whatever. But why would the freaking tank? I mean, I guess a tank could roll over someone because they might not see that someone, but then why wouldn't the SUV have seen her? And was she maybe a protester? I don't know. Was she maybe holding up a no king sign or something, even though it was Monday and the no kings thing was over? Let me let puppy dog in. Hello, Coco. Come on in. Hey, baby, can I sit over there? Can I get through? And then you can sit wherever you want. You're such a love bug. Okay. So let me get caught up with you because, sorry, I fell behind. So scary. Yeah. I wonder if we'll see it. I mean, videos are great. They can tell you a lot, but they can also be taken out of context just the way anything else can be taken out of context. You're not going to see what's leading up to the video. You're not going to see the aftermath of the video. You're not going to see the other angles. You're not going to see the other side. Videos are awesome evidence. They're probably some of the very, very best evidence in a trial or anything else, but they're not infallible. It's pretty wild. Let's see. I am sure probably MAGA people, yeah, going into the army, of course. I mean, of course they're going to beef it up, and probably a lot of the insurrectionists that got pardoned could then join the army. I mean, I always figured that the insurrectionists getting pardoned would be his army, if not the actual army. I agree, Jazz, about grape on the screen. I saw Pete Hegseth. Okay. Yeah, wasn't that weird? Wasn't that like so staged? I mean, I didn't watch very much of it. I could barely watch it. I watched like 5 minutes and I was like, blah, blah. The guy was just like, Mr. Hegseth, you're so awesome. Let me pleasure you. And yeah, how do you do it? How are you so awesome? It's like, no, Hegseth's a complete, utter train wreck, disaster, and a grapist, allegedly. Oh, and yes, about the last. I mean, yes, I saw the lady getting run over. Yeah, it's so insane. Absolutely insane. So agree, like the Sally Port video is in Karen Reed's case, it was completely inverted. Yeah, they can really manipulate with the videos. And unfortunately, I don't know the Sally Port video in Karen Reed's case. Is the trial over? Is the jury in deliberations? It looked like it from what I could see last night. And I'm wondering when the Diddy trial is expected to wrap up. We're probably at like day 29 or 30. Okay. So we're going to read the lawsuit. And like I said, trigger warning. The jury is in deliberations. Did they just wrap yesterday? Yeah. I mean, from what I've seen, she doesn't seem guilty. And because it was a mistrial the last time around, I think that she would have been found guilty in the last trial if she was, because it's practically impossible when you're being railroaded, when you're being set up, it's practically impossible to escape that. Okay. So, yeah, I wonder if Hegseth was then questioned by some Democrats, right? Some non-fanboys. Let's see. I guess they're having the mass fires in Los Angeles again. And Maui, Anna Bees, did you see that? Maui's on fire again, too. Holy crap, man. It could be natural wildfires in both cases. Both areas are prone to that, but I don't know. After what's gone on the last 12 months in both cases, in both places, I do not know. Let's see. I am trying to get to the lawsuit. It's so bad. Just trigger warning a bunch of times over. And here it is. And I already put it in I put a link to it in the description. I think this is 10 pages, and I'll just read as much of it as I can, basically, that seems pertinent, because reading these things is really dry. Oh, it's actually like 19 pages in the attachment, but the lawsuit's 10 pages of the 19. So this is Jane Doe proceeding under a pseudonym, plaintiff, versus Donnie J. Trumpsterfire and Jeff E. Little E. Jury trial demanded. Complaint for rape, sexual misconduct, criminal sexual acts, sexual abuse, forcible touching, assault, battery, intentional and reckless infliction of emotional distress, duress, false imprisonment, and defamation. And in my experience, someone's not going to file a lawsuit like this that's not accurate, because first of all, you can get in a lot of trouble. And yeah, they would have sued her already if it was made up. They would have totally sued her, and she'd be in jail for it, in my opinion. So here we go. Plaintiff Jane Doe, proceeding under a pseudonym, and this is from somewhere around 2016. It's probably, the date is probably written at the end of it. Oh, it was filed on September 30th, 2016. Okay. Brings this action against DJT and JEE that alleges that, one, plaintiff is an individual residing in and citizen of the state of California. Two, upon information and belief, defendants DJT and Jeff EE, I'll just say little d and little e, each reside in the district and are citizens of the state of New York. Jurisdiction and venue. Plaintiff is a citizen of the state of California for the purposes of diversity jurisdiction. 4 defendants are citizens of the state of New York for purposes of diversity jurisdiction. This court has original subject matter jurisdiction with respect to this action, pursuant to, as there exists complete diversity of citizenship between plaintiff and defendants, and the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000, exclusive of interests and costs. Defendants are each subject to the jurisdiction of this court pursuant to, with proper venue pursuant to. I'm not going to read you all those letters and numbers. It's kind of meaningless to me anyway. If you're a lawyer, I guess you could read along, because the link is there in the description, if you're interested in that stuff. As both defendant, I'm going to just kind of brush over a lot of this that's kind of plain vanilla information. As both defendants are residents of and or domiciled in the district, and the events giving rise to the claim occurred in the district. And then this section is titled Rape, Sexual Misconduct, Criminal Sexual Act, Sexual Abuse, Forcible Touching, Assault, Battery, Intentional and Reckless Infliction of Emotional Distress, Duress, and False Imprisonment. Number 7, plaintiff was subject to acts of rape, sexual misconduct, criminal sexual act, sexual abuse, forcible touching, assault, battery, intentional and reckless infliction of emotional distress, duress, false imprisonment, and threats of death, and or serious bodily injury by the defendants that took place at several parties during the summer months of 1994. The parties were held by defendant Little E at a New York City residence that was being used by defendant Little E at 9 East 71st Street in Manhattan. That's that largest, most expensive residence in Manhattan. It's like 7 stories. And apparently Les Wex bought it for him. Might have sold it to him for like $1 or $10 or something like that. Allegedly, I came across that information the other day. I think it was $10. During this period, but it's like a $10 million place, I'm sure. During this period, plaintiff was a minor of age 13 and was legally incapable under New York law of consenting to sexual intercourse and other sexual contacts detailed herein. The grapes in the first, second, and third degree sexual misconduct and criminal sexual acts in the first, second, and third degree, sexual abuse in the first, second, and third degree, and forcible touching, and on information and briefing, predatory sexual assault. Let me just say here that I found this with a very simple Google search. I can tell you the exact words that I put in the search engine. It was grape, Jane Doe, and the last names of little t and little e. I think that was all I put in there. And this and a whole lot of other stuff came right up. And that was Google, not Yahoo. Yahoo, I think, is like owned by people that scrub everything. Like Yahoo doesn't pull anything up, in my experience. Let's see. Where was I? Sexual assault detailed herein are unlawful under New York law and continue the torts of assault, battery, false imprisonment, and intentional or reckless infliction of emotional distress, including threats of force and serious bodily harm under New York law. In addition, the U.S. Code provides plaintiff with a civil remedy for personal injuries because plaintiff, while a minor, was a victim of violations and she suffered personal injury as a result of such violations. Declaration of Plaintiff Jane Doe, Exhibit A herein. Declaration of Tiffany Doe, Exhibit B here too. Declaration of Joan Doe, Exhibit C here too. Jane Doe, Tiffany Doe, and Joan Doe are each pseudonyms on as each woman wishes anonymity. Oh, and I heard an interview. Trying to remember who did the interview. It wasn't Connie Chang. I'll look it up. I'll put it in the description. It was with Jean E.G. Carroll. Is that her name? The one from the lawsuit with the Bergdorf and Goodman dressing room assaults. E. Jean Carroll, right? Anyway, it was a really good interview. I was listening to that while I was getting the house pulled together for the guests that are coming, the day after tomorrow? Yikes, I'm running out of time. I still have things I need to do. Today is day 4 of the deliberation. No, I did not see that about Los Angeles and Maui. Isn't that insane? Thank you for keeping me abreast of the Karen Reed trial. That is one I'm super interested in. It's just that I'm so hyper focused on the political stuff, and I guess I get my true crime fix from the politics because there's so much criminality going on right now. So many crimes being committed left and right. It's atrocious. Where was I? The anonymity. Tiffany Doe, a witness, was an employee of defendant little e, Exhibit B. Joan Doe, a witness, was a childhood classmate of plaintiff who, in the 94-95 school year, was told by plaintiff that plaintiff was subject to sexual conduct by the defendants at parties in New York City during the summer of 1994. So here we are, this lawsuit 22 years later. Courts have discretion, and this is the second time she filed it. I think I already said that. Courts have the discretion to allow proceeding anonymously where the need for privacy outweighs the public's interest in knowing their identity and any prejudice to the defendants. Sealed plaintiff versus sealed defendants. This litigation involves matters that are highly sensitive and of a personal nature, and identification on plaintiff would pose a risk of retaliatory physical harm for her and to others. Exhibit A. All of the 10 factors that the Second Circuit articulated as relevant to the analysis favor anonymity, especially factors 1 through 4, 7, and 10. Factors 1 and 2, whether the litigation involves matters that are highly sensitive and of a personal nature, and whether identification poses a risk of retaliatory physical or mental harm to the party seeking to proceed anonymously. So yeah, I wanted to say too that I've learned my lesson to not try to print things out and read them to you, because it is always so whack. Like there's always parts missing, pages out of order. I would take responsibility for it, but I don't think it's me. I think it's the printer. But I guess it's me because I don't know how to print right. Okay, I'll take responsibility for it. It's all my fault. Like that Kurt Cobain song, all apologies. Everything's my fault. Okay. Retaliatory physical or mental harm to the party seeking to proceed anonymously, or even more critically, to innocent non-parties, or are neutral with respect to anonymity. Protecting plaintiff's anonymity is also appropriate, as she is a rape victim. Plus, she was a child rape victim. Number 9, plaintiff was enticed by promises of money and a modeling career to attend a series of parties with other similarly situated minor females held at a New York City residence that was being used by defendant Jeffrey E., little e. At least 4 of the parties were attended by little t. Exhibits A and B. On information and belief, by this time in 1994, defendant little t had known defendant little e for 7 years. I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy, quote unquote. Little t booms from a speakerphone, quote, he's a lot of fun to be with. We've all heard this quote a million times. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, no doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. It's like a pretty pathetic social life, if you ask me. And that's not a social life. That's called a sex life. Social life is like being social. It doesn't involve getting physical. It's social. Freak. Okay. End quote. And knew the plaintiff was then just 13 years old. Exhibits A and B. See, you can't file a lawsuit without having your evidence. You know, no lawyer is going to file a lawsuit without evidence. And any judge that thinks that you're just like wantonly filing a lawsuit for the heck of it, they'll hold you in contempt of court. But like I said, these defendants, little t and little e, they would have slapped her with a $100 million bazillion dollar lawsuit immediately. Like they would have countersued immediately before she even withdrew it. But especially after she withdrew it, because they'd be like, see, she withdrew it. That's evidence that it's fake. It's like, no one's going to put this out there 22 years later for shits and giggles, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. Okay, number 10, defendant Trump initiated sexual contact with plaintiff at 4 different parties. Little t, sorry, Trumpster fire. Bleep. Okay. On the 4th and final sexual encounter with little t tied plaintiff to a bed. I mean, this does sound unbelievable, in my opinion. But like I said, I think that she would have been held in contempt of court if this wasn't true and accurate, and they would have gone after her big time. They did go after her with threats to her safety, so that's why she withdrew it, in my opinion. And that's what she says, allegedly. Defendant Little T tied plaintiff to a bed, exposed himself to plaintiff, and then proceeded to forcibly rape plaintiff during the court. And let me do the trigger warning again retroactively if this is triggering. Don't listen, don't watch. Log off. Take care of yourself. During the course of this savage attack, it says savage sexual attack. I'll just read most of the words. Plaintiff loudly pleaded with defendant Little T to stop, but with no effect. Defendant Little T responded to plaintiff's pleas by violently striking plaintiff in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted. Exhibits A and B. See, honestly, I find that hard to believe, but there's exhibits. We'll see if they're in here at the end. I like browsed through it, but I didn't go through it with a fine-tooth comb yet. That's what I'm doing right here, right now with you. It's very alarming, the hitting in the face. But yeah, if you're going to do all the rest of this stuff to a 13-year-old, like, where is the line in the sand? Like, what won't you do, right? And I'm surprised that they didn't unalive her for ratting them out. They threatened to, at least that's what it says in here. Hold on. Number 11, immediately following this rape, defendant Little T threatened plaintiff that were she ever to reveal any of the details of the sexual and physical abuse of her by defendant Little T, plaintiff and her family would be physically harmed, if not killed. Exhibits A and B. Defendant Little E had sexual contact with plaintiff at 2 of the parties. The second sexual encounter with defendant Little E took place after plaintiff had been raped by defendant Little T. Defendant Little E forced himself upon plaintiff and proceeded to rape her, trigger warning, anally and vaginally, despite her loud pleas to stop. Defendant Little E then attempted to strike plaintiff about the head with his closed fist while he angrily screamed at plaintiff that he, defendant Little E, rather than defendant Little T, should have been the one who took plaintiff's virginity, before plaintiff finally managed to break away from defendant Little E. Exhibits A and B. The threats of violence against plaintiff and her family continued, this time from defendant Little E, who again reiterated that plaintiff was not to reveal any of the details of his sexual and physical abuse of her, or else specifically plaintiff and her family would be seriously physically harmed, if not killed. Exhibits A and B. 14, while still under threats of physical harm, by coming forward and having no reason to believe that the threats have ever been lifted or would ever be lifted. And you got to remember, Virginia Giuffre dealt with these threats relentlessly throughout her entire life. Plaintiff, who has suffered from stress, emotional distress, mental pain, and suffering, among other problems, ever since the assaults, was subjected to daily painful reminders of the horrific acts of one of the perpetrators. Defendant Little T, via mass media coverage of him starting on or about June 16th, 2015, that over a short period of time became continuous and unavoidable. Exhibit A. And that's probably like the day that he went down the escalator announcing his candidacy to run for the Republican ticket. The anniversary of that, 10-year anniversary of that, just passed like 2 days ago. Number 15, as a direct and proximate result of the sexual assaults and rapes perpetrated by defendants upon her, plaintiff has suffered stress, emotional distress, and mental pain and suffering, as well as adverse physical consequences. Hola, Fred Field. How are you today, sir? Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. I'm reading the lawsuit that Jane Doe filed twice against little e and little t and withdrew twice. It's from 2016 was when it was filed. I think she withdrew it in 2017. I'm about halfway through the lawsuit. As a direct and proximate result, this is number 16, as a direct and proximate result of the sexual assaults and rapes perpetrated by defendants upon her, plaintiff has suffered physical pain and suffering. Number 17, as a direct proximate result of the sexual assaults and rapes perpetrated by defendants upon her, plaintiff has been subjected to public scorn, hatred, and ridicule, and has suffered threats against her life and physical safety. 18, as a direct and proximate result of the sexual assaults and rapes perpetrated by defendants upon her, plaintiff has incurred special damages, including medical and legal expenses. 19, the sexual assaults and rapes perpetrated by defendants upon plaintiff were intentional acts. 20, the conduct of defendants demonstrates willful, reckless, and intentional conduct that raises a conscious indifference to consequences. See, because both of them never suffered any consequences of their actions. They both got out of everything. I think that little E thought he was going to get out of the last one without any trouble, but then I think that he became unalive, and I don't think by self. I think it's interesting who was in charge of the nation at that point in time, August 10th, 2019, and who was the Attorney General, William Barr, whose father, is his name Donald Barr? I forget his father's name, who had hired little E back in the 70s to be a teacher at a high school in New York. Anyway, William Barr should have never had any, he should have recused himself from anything little E, but he never did. He was all in, hands on deck, all hands on deck. Let's see. At the appropriate time, this is 21, in this litigation, plaintiff shall amend her complaint to assert a claim for punitive damages against defendants in order to punish defendants for their action and to deter defendants from repeating their conduct. Tolling of statute of limitations. 22, any statute of limitations applicable to rape, sexual misconduct, and criminal sexual acts, sexual abuse, forcible touching, assault, battery, intentional and reckless infliction of emotional distress, false imprisonment of a minor, if any, is told owning to the continuous and active duress imposed upon plaintiff by defendants that effectively robbed plaintiff of her free will to commence legal action until the present time. More particularly, plaintiff was unrelentingly threatened by each defendant that were she ever to reveal any of the details of the sexual and physical abuse caused to her by defendants, plaintiff and her family would be physically harmed if not killed. The duress has not terminated and the fear has not subsided. The duress is an element of or inherent in the underlying causes of action complained of herein. The duress and coercion exerted by defendants has been such as to have actually deprived plaintiff of her freedom of will to institute suit earlier in time, and it rose to such a level that a person of reasonable firmness in plaintiff's situation would have been unable to resist. Exhibits A and B. And let me just clarify that I'm under the impression that this is the second time that she filed this lawsuit, but perhaps this is the first from the way it reads. But either way, she filed it twice, she withdrew it twice. Number 23. Did I finish all of that? I think I finished it. And it rose to such a level that a person of reasonable firmness in plaintiff situations would have been unable to resist. Exhibits A and B. 23. Both defendants let plaintiff know that each was a very wealthy, powerful man and indicated that they had the power, ability, and means to carry out their threats. Indeed, defendant little t stated that plaintiff shouldn't ever say anything if she didn't want to disappear, like Maria, a 12-year-old female that was forced to be involved in the third incident with defendant little t. That's the first time I'm coming across the part about Maria, 12-year-old female. And that plaintiff had not seen since the third incident, and that he was capable of having her whole family killed. Exhibits A and B. 24. The duress has prevented plaintiff from starting litigation before this year. However, as soon as she surfaced, she received threats. More specifically, shortly after her first complaint was filed in California on April 26, 2016, she started receiving threatening phone calls on her cell phone. Exhibit A. 25. Defendants are equitably estopped. I've never seen that word. Equitably estopped from arguing that any statute of limitations has not been toiled, as defendants wrongfully forced plaintiff to refrain from timely commencing this action by threats, duress, and other misconduct. Exhibits A and B. A wrongdoer should not be able to take refuge behind the shield of his own wrongdoing. 26. Moreover, this action has been brought before the facts, giving rise to the estoppel. Sorry, my glasses. I don't know that word. ESTOPPEL. Giving rise to the estoppel have ceased to be operational, i.e., while still under threats of physical harm, by coming forward and having no reason to believe that the threats have ever been lifted or would ever be lifted. And since plaintiff has decided to seek redress at this time, plaintiff seeks an order of protection in favor of plaintiff and all associated with her, as to protect them from harm and harassment from defendants and their agents and associates. Exhibit A. Defamation. 27. On information and belief on or about April 28, 2016, defendant little t provided the following statement to American Media Incorporated and or Radar Online LLC for publication on at least their website, radaronline.com, regarding plaintiff's complaint filed in the U.S. District Court for the Central District District of California. Quote, the allegations are not only categorically false, but disgusting at the highest level and clearly framed to solicit media attention, or perhaps are simply politically motivated. There is absolutely no merit to these allegations, period, end quote. I mean, that's standard. That's what anybody always says in a situation like that, unless they're going to admit it, which doesn't typically happen. Or it's just a big misunderstanding, right? I thought it was consensual. It's just a big misunderstanding. I thought she was 21. It's just a big misunderstanding. The statement provided for publication by defendant Little T was published by said website and has been republished elsewhere in whole and in part numerous times, and similar statements of an attorney for defendant Little T were also published, including on September 22nd, 2016 by Courthouse News Service. So that was right before the election. The statements provided for publication by, remember, he was having all kinds of legal trouble right before the election. The first election that he was a candidate in 2016. The statements provided for publication by defendant Little T and his agent that were published by said websites are false as they pertain to plaintiff. 28. The published statements are libelous on their face and clearly expose plaintiff to hatred, contempt, ridicule, and oblique. Ridicule and oblique. Is that what that word is? OBLOQUY. 29. As a proximate result of the above described publications, plaintiff has suffered loss of her reputation, shame, mortification, and injury to her feelings, all to her damage in an amount to be established by proof at trial. The above described publications were not privileged because they were published by defendant Little T and his agent with malice, hatred, and ill will toward plaintiff and the desire to injure her. As a direct and proximate result of defendant Little T's defamation of plaintiff has been subjected to public scorn, hatred, and ridicule, and has suffered other injury. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiff prays for judgment against defendants and for the following relief. A, the judgment be entered against defendants for special damages, compensatory damages, and punitive damages in an amount which shall be known to be reasonable and just by the evidence and in excess of $75,000, exclusive of interest and costs. B, that all costs of this action be assessed against defendant, including all reasonable attorney's fees, costs, and expenses of this action. Let me just interject here too that E.G. Carroll has never received a dime of the $80 or $90 million that she was awarded in jury trials. Not a dime yet, and may never. She probably doesn't expect to. And where's the contempt of court? Again, where's the contempt of court? That all costs of, did I go with B yet? I think I read A, $75,000. B, that all costs of this action be assessed against defendants, including all reasonable attorney's fees, costs, and expenses of this action. I think I read that one. C, that an order of protection in favor of plaintiff and all associated with her be issued so as to protect them from harm and harassment from defendants and their agents and associates. And D, such and other further relief as the court may deem just and proper. Jury demand. Plaintiff demands a trial by jury of all issues properly triable by a jury in this action. Dated September 30th, 2016, in Winter Park, Florida. One of the lawyers is Winter Park, Florida. Another one of the lawyers is Princeton, New Jersey. And let's see, this is probably, let me just skim over the last 10 pages. That was 10 pages. At least it's all double spaced and everything. Otherwise, it would be impossible to read on the cell phone. Status of earlier filed case closed. So that's just about when it was filed prior. Declaration in support of plaintiff's request for a protective order. I am a competent adult over 18 years of age to testify. I was subjected to extreme sexual and physical abuse by defendants, including forcible rape that took place at several parties of defendant Little E during the summer of 1994 in New York City at a residence used by defendant Little E. During this period, I was 13 years old. More particularly, I traveled by bus to New York City in June 1994 in the hope of starting a modeling career. Isn't that so sad? Like how many chewed up and spit out. I went to several modeling agencies, but was told that I needed to put together a modeling portfolio before I would be considered. I then went to the Port Authority in New York City to start to make my way back home. There I met a woman who introduced herself to me as Tiffany. She told me about the parties and said that if I would join her at the parties, I would be introduced to people who could get me into the modeling profession. Tiffany also told me I would be paid for attending. So that's interesting. At the Port Authority, the bus station, because I know that perps hang out at places like that in big cities, looking for runaways in particular. Number 4, the parties were held at a New York City residence that were being used by defendant Little E. Each of the parties had other minor females and a number of guests of Mr. Little E, including defendant Little T, Little D, Little DT. At 4 of the parties I attended, I understood that both Little T and Little E knew that I was 13 years old. Defendant Little T had sexual contact with me at 4 different parties in the summer of 1994. On the 4th and final sexual encounter with defendant Little T tied me to a bed, exposed himself to me, and then proceeded to forcibly grape me. In the course of the savage sexual attack, I loudly pleaded with defendant Little T to stop, but he did not. Defendant Little T responded to my pleas by violently striking me in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted. Immediately following this grape, defendant Little T threatened me that if I were I ever to reveal any of the details of defendant Little T's sexual and physical abuse of me, my family and I would be physically harmed, if not killed. Defendant Little E, number 7, had sexual contact with me at 2 of the parties that summer. On the second occasion involving defendant Little E, defendant little E forced himself upon me and proceeded to grape me anally and vaginally despite my loud pleas to stop. I know this is repetitive, but that's how lawsuits are. They're very repetitive. Defendant little E then attempted to strike me about the head with his closed fists. Oh, I missed that it was plural fists. Yikes. Well, it's bad enough with one closed fist, but two closed fists? OMG. He angrily screamed at me that he, defendant little E, should have been the one who took my virginity, not defendant little T, before I finally managed to break away from defendant little E. 8, immediately following this grape, just like defendant little T, defendant little E threatened me not to ever reveal any of the details of defendant little E's sexual and physical abuse of me, or else my family and I would be physically harmed, if not killed. Number 9, both defendants had let me know that each was a very wealthy, powerful man and indicated that they had the power, ability, and means to carry out their threats. Indeed, defendant little T stated that I shouldn't ever say anything if I didn't want to disappear like Maria, a 12-year-old female that was forced to be involved in the third incident with defendant little T, and that I had not seen since that third incident, and that he was capable of having my whole family killed. You know, cars run off the road all the time. For instance, number 10, the duress imposed on me. Oh, and planes crash an awful lot too, don't they? For example, the duress imposed on me by defendants not to ever reveal any of the details of the sexual contact and physical abuse caused to me by the defendants has not terminated, and the fear it has instilled in me has not subsided. Unfortunately, making matters worse for me, I was subjected to daily painful reminders of the horrific acts of defendant little T via mass media coverage of him starting last summer that over a short period of time became continuous and unavoidable. Yeah, can you imagine seeing somebody like that that you had that experience with becoming a world leader? Hey, Patricia Moss, how you doing? Jazzy Zena just joined the live. Happy Wednesday. Yes, happy Wednesday, and Coco is back. If she scratches again, I'll let her in. I think I'm almost done with this. Let's see. I think I'm on number 11. The duress has prevented me from starting litigation before this year. However, as soon as I surfaced, I received threats. More specifically, shortly after my first complaint was filed in California on April 26, 2016, I started receiving threatening phone calls on a cell phone that I then owned. The calls were never for more than 20 seconds or so before they hung up, and they were always from a blocked or unavailable phone number, according to my caller ID feature. Since I changed phone numbers, the threatening calls have completely stopped. Number 12, this litigation involves matters that are highly sensitive and of a personal nature, and I believe that identification of me would pose a risk of retaliatory physical harm to me and to others. 13, let me let the Coco in. Hey, baby girl, here you go. Here's a pillow. Okay, me back. Oh, I set a pillow down for her to lay on, and she laid right next to it. Isn't that cute? 13, I have no reason to believe that the defendant's threats have ever been lifted or will ever be lifted. So I request that the court issue an order protecting me and my family from harm and harassment by the defendants. I declare under penalty and perjury that the foregoing is true and correct, dated June 18th, 2016. So that's interesting that she filed both times in 2016. So what was that, about like April? And then she withdrew it, and then she decided to refile it. Declaration, I, Jane Doe, a pseudonym, state as follows. I am a competent adult. In the 1994-95 school year, I was told by the plaintiff in Jane Doe versus Little T and Little E that the plaintiff was subject to sexual contact by the defendants at parties in New York City during the summer of 1994. I declare under perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. And that I was so confused because it signed Joan Doe, and I thought it was signed Jane Doe. That's why I was like all like, what? I was like, why is she writing this about herself? Okay, so that's Joan Doe, dated July 23rd, 2016. And then another declaration in support of plaintiff's request for a protective order. I, Tiffany Doe, a pseudonym, state as follows. I'm a competent adult over 18 years old. Number 2, I originally met Little E in New York City in 1990 when I was the age of 22. This Tiffany Doe is very likely Maria Farmer, in my opinion. I'll have to like match up the dates and the ages, but he didn't really go after people in their 20s, but he went after her and she was in her 20s. And she was initially a Jane Doe. She was under a pseudonym, and then she came out with her real name. So Maria Farmer is the artist who went to the Art Academy in New York City and was assaulted in Ohio, in New Albany, at Wexner's property. Her little sister was assaulted at the Zorro Ranch in Santa Fe by Little E and Ghislaine, and allegedly, I guess. And then Maria Farmer has overcome brain cancer twice. I think she's in her 40s now. I could do a little math and figure that out. If this is her 1990, age of 22, that would be 35 years ago. Would that make her 57 now? Yeah, that would make her about my age. 1990, age of 22. I was 23 in 1990. I don't know if she's my age. Maybe this isn't her. I'll just check it out. Anyway, let me finish reading. Sorry. I originally met, I still think it's probably her. I just didn't realize we were the same age. Oh, and Virginia Gouffre and I share the same birthday, not the same year, but the same birthday. I just saw that yesterday. I was like, OMG, how did I miss that all this time? I originally met Jeffrey Little E in New York City in 1990 when I was 22. I attended a series of parties that same year in 1990 where I was paid to entertain various guests of Mr. Epstein. In the year 1991, I was promoted to the occupation of party planner, in which my duties were to get attractive adolescent women to attend these parties. Yeah, it might not be Maria Farmer because she was like assigned to be like the desk person to register all of his victims as they came into the house. And then she was hired to do custom art. That's when she went to New Albany for a summer. She was going to be doing custom art. I think she also went to New Mexico, but I think they featured her art in the movie As Good as It Gets, and that that was through a connection with little E and Les. I believe that was probably like the summer of 94. I don't know. I should look up the year of that movie, As Good as It Gets. Let's see. Write that down because I'll forget and then I'll be like, what was I going to look up? Don't you do that a lot? Like you get to your Google, then you're like, wait, what was it? Okay. Party planner. Okay. 14, I was hired by and paid directly by little E from the years of 91 to 2000 to attract adolescent women to attend these parties, most of which were held at what is known as the Wexner Mansion, located at 9 East 71st Street in New York City. In June 94, while performing my duties as a recruiter of adolescent women to attend Mr. Little E's parties, I met a 13-year-old adolescent woman, the plaintiff in this matter, at the Port Authority in New York City, who said she had come to New York in the hope of starting a modeling career. Yeah, see, with these witnesses too. So yeah, this is the one that scooped her up from the Port Authority. Number 16, I persuaded the plaintiff to attend a series of parties with little E that took place during the summer of 94. I told her that if she would join me at the parties, she would be introduced to people who could get her into the modeling profession, and she would be paid for attending. And this is just like Sean Combs and his luring people with the promise of a musical career, and R. Kelly too. It was at these series of parties I personally witnessed the plaintiff being forced to perform various sexual acts with little T and little E. Both little T and E were advised that she was 13 years old. Yikes. Number 18, or no, number 8, sorry. I personally witnessed 4 sexual encounters that the plaintiff was forced to have with little T during this period, including the 4th of these encounters where little T forcibly raped her despite her pleas to stop. 9. Wow, this is crazy, isn't it? I personally witnessed the one occasion where little T forced the plaintiff and a 12-year-old female named Maria to perform oral sex on little T, and witnessed his physical abuse of both minors when they finished the act. Sorry. Trigger warning again. I told you this whole thing is like perverted. Number 10, I personally witnessed or was made immediately aware of the 2 occasions where my boss, little E, attempted to grape and sodomize the plaintiff. I personally witnessed little E sexually and physically abuse other minor females, even younger than her. 11, it was my job to personally witness and supervise encounters between the underage girls that little E hired and his guests. Oh, how awful. 12, I personally witnessed little T physically threaten the life and well-being of plaintiff if she ever revealed any details of the physical and sexual abuse she suffered by her at the hands of little T. 13, I personally witnessed little E physically threaten the life and well-being of plaintiff if she ever revealed the details of the physical and sexual abuse she suffered at the hands of little E or any of his guests. 14, I personally witnessed defendant little T telling the plaintiff that she shouldn't ever say anything if she didn't want to disappear, like the 12-year-old female Maria, that he was capable of having her whole family killed. So Maria must have been eliminated, huh? Or maybe just in a tunnel on an island or something. I don't know. like a baby farm. Who knows? Can't put anything past people like this. 15, after leaving the employment of Little E in the year 2000, I was personally threatened by Little E that I would be killed and my family killed as well if I ever disclosed any of the physical and sexual abuse of minor females that I had personally witnessed by Mr. E or any of his guests. 16, I am coming forward to swear to the truthfulness of the physical and sexual abuse that I personally witnessed of minor females at the hands of Little T and Little E, including the plaintiff during the time of my employment from the years of 1990 to 2000. For Little E, I swear to these facts under penalty of perjury, even though I fully understand that the life of myself and my family is now in grave danger. I declare under penalty and perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. Dated June 18th, 2016. Phew, 19 of 19. Let me set that down. That was a little bit exhausting. Not too bad, but hopefully it wasn't too arduous for you guys. If you're still here, it looks like some are. Yeah. When I saw your comment again, Patricia Moss, if you're still here, and it says, hi, Jazzy. Zena just joined the live. Happy Wednesday. For a second, because my eyes are a little bleary, I thought it said Xana, going over to the Idaho 4 case. Another case that is just too convoluted for me to keep up with all of the twists and turns. And, so much of it is fabrication and lies and covering and possible psyop. I think a psyop. I think the same thing with Kylie Rodney's case, quite honestly. So, let's see, we are at about an hour and a half. And what else do I want to mention before wrapping up? I guess that Little T was really upset with Hegseth about the military parade, that he chewed him out for the parade being like a happy, lighthearted event when he wanted it to be like a mean, menacing event to show the world how mean and menacing he was. But Hegseth got yelled at for like the army soldiers like waving to people from the tanks. Way too friendly. And I guess Little T is putting up those 2 flags today on the White House lawn, or he made posts about it yesterday that he was having them put up. I don't know if it's today or a different day, but I thought that he already put those up. I guess not. I guess he talked about it and now he's doing it. So I don't know what the symbolism is there. I'm sure it's something that I'm missing. Maybe it's just more of a distraction. I don't know. I would think that it's specifically symbolic of something. And then, this Rockland County, New York State, the oversight and security of the election results. Even Newsweek is covering it now, you guys. It's getting into the mainstream. It is. And did I already say this at the beginning of this video? When Trumpster Fire said in relation to Vladdy not being invited to the G7 summit, that something like that, even if he was invited now, that there's too much water over the dam for it to happen, for him to not have hard feelings. And I think he went on to say, like, yeah, water over the dam. Yeah, that's a saying. It's like, no, it's not. I think you meant water under the bridge, but that has the exact opposite meaning, ironically. Water under the bridge is sort of like cluck, cluck, I'm a duck, water off my back, just let it go. It's not like, oh, there's too much water under the bridge, let's hold on to the resentment. But no, if there's too much water over the dam, then definitely hold on to the resentment. Like, he does this a lot. The other day when he said that Biden wasn't the sharpest bulb, he wasn't the sharpest light bulb. Like, you can't make this stuff up. And then instead of just correcting himself, it's okay to cross your wires, laugh at yourself, and get on with it. But when you say that somebody's not the sharpest bulb and you're not being the sharpest bulb, I guess for that we can thank him. So we don't have to say it. He says it for us. Anna B says hello to Fred and Patricia. Yes, it's lovely to have you guys here. Thank you so much for being here on this beautiful Wednesday, June 18th. Can you believe we're just like a couple of weeks and a couple of days from the 4th of July? So, yeah, like, why does the Trumpster fire like to speak in cliches and bumper stickers, like make America great again? Like, everything he says is like a slogan or a bumper sticker or a movie cliche or a misremembered cliche. Okay, I was going to talk a little bit more about the horrible shootings in Minnesota. So that guy, Luther, did I not write his name down? The disgusting Vance Luther. What is his last name? Vance Luther Holden. Is that right? No, Bolter. Vance Luther Bolter. Boelter, I think. So what I wanted to say about Melissa Hortman and Mark Hortman, the two that were unalived with their dog, there were memorials, I think, for them yesterday. But something that I did not know until yesterday after my video is that Jenny, Vance Luther's wife, interned for Tim Walz in 2010. When the police stopped her in her car, I think it was Sunday. It could have been late Saturday, but I think it was Sunday. It was before they apprehended Vance Luther. They pulled her over with family members. So he has 5 kids. They have 5 kids, and I guess they homeschooled all of them. Only one of them's a male. 4 of them are females. I'm going to guess that Grace, Faith, and Hope are all 18 and over because they don't give the names of the other 2. And really, they only say these are the names of his 3 daughters, 3 of his daughters, and then they don't say much about the other ones. So they don't even say that there's 5. So I'm thinking that they're just leaving all identifying information out of the news articles for an abundance of caution, since they're minors, which is definitely a wise thing. So I'm certainly going to respect that, and yet at the same time I do want to clarify what I have found in my research, which is that 2 of his daughters, Faith, Hope, and Grace, 2 of them are married. And then when Jenny was pulled over, and I don't think it's clear what she was pulled over for, she had passports, $10,000 cash. I said $50,000 cash yesterday. I think I had seen that, though. I don't think that was me misremembering. and a weapon and ammo. And I think that they actually did detain her and then let her go. They didn't arrest her. Or maybe it was just that they held her there at the on the road where they pulled her over, I think for like 3.5 hours, I think. But it's kind of sketchy. It's, that this information is just kind of surfacing. And this is interesting. Vance Luther Bolter has a PhD, maybe in like leadership or something like that. But then somewhere else it said that his most recent job is 2021, that he was like the manager at a 7-Eleven, I think. But on his LinkedIn website, he sounds all fancy with all of this like security work. We know that he was appointed by Governor Walz for something, and I think that was some type of security thing. But he had already been appointed by the governor prior to Walz's time in that position. And I think that the prior governor was a Republican, because this guy, Vance Bolter, is a staunch Republican. It's just crazy, all of the misinformation that the MAGA tried to pump into the public arena early on. So yeah, did he have a PhD, and his last full-time job was a supervisor or a manager at 7-Eleven in 2021? So him and his wife, it looked like they were trying to start this security company. It looked like it wasn't clear if they actually had any clients or not. I guess he's like a minister too. And some people sent me his sermons, but I haven't watched the videos yet. I think I caught one of the sermons on one of the YouTube videos that I saw yesterday, and he was just like off his rocker. So I don't know if it's the same video or a different one. I think he's like in the Congo, and that he went there specifically to like denounce the homosexuality. Like, why are these MAGA people so hellbent about that topic? Like, don't you have anything better to think about? Like, how about feeding people in the Congo? My goodness. I'm sure there's a lot of people that need medical care, that need clean water, but no, you just want to talk about that. What else? I said the thing about the homeschooling, and yeah, I mentioned yesterday that they didn't arrest Jenny, the FBI agent said, and I couldn't find that one interview with that one retired FBI agent, although there's a ton of interviews with a ton of retired FBI agents out there. This one was really, really good, and I think it was like on autoplay, and I don't know. Let's see. Vance went to a lot of Trumpster Fire rallies, apparently. And was such a staunch Republican that his roommate said he would be deeply insulted if anybody mistook him for a Democrat, and that was the furthest thing from his belief system. But that roommate, his best friend since fourth grade, was like, he was such a nice guy. I mean, they always say that. I mean, freaking serial killers and mob, the the mob bosses. They're always like, oh, but he was such a teddy bear. It's so hard to picture that. So those protests, the No King's Day protests on Saturday, the numbers keep going up and up and up. First, it was just like 2 million people nationwide at 2,000 different protests across the country, but they were like international. There were some of these No King's Day protests in other countries because other countries are having a really hard time with Donnie and what he's doing with the world, with the global economy, and what they see going on here. Our tourism has dropped like 30%, taken a major dip. And yeah, I wouldn't be coming to visit here if I wasn't a citizen here right now, not with this administration. But so this largest protest in American history. So then I saw numbers that it was like 5 million people nationwide that came out for this largest protest in our country's history. And then today I heard that it was like tens of millions of people. So I don't know. I don't know how many millions of people, but in stark contrast to the roughly 10,000 that might have been at that military parade in DC. And, you know, sad that the Army can't have an actual parade to celebrate all of the hard work and sacrifice of the military. Sad that it was another lie, basically, that, oh, it just so happens to fall on the man, baby, toddler's birthday. Huh. And then like the Navy and the Air Force, like they didn't get a celebration of their inception, which I think it's like their 250th anniversary too. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check that. But yeah. Yeah. Do you remember a few days ago when somebody asked Caroline with a KKK, I mean, Caroline with a K, they asked her about Trumpster Fire's support of free speech for people at these protests. And Caroline with the KKK said, of course, Trumpster Fire supports freedom of speech. What a stupid question. Do you remember that, you guys? Stupid question. What a stupid question. I had not noticed until a couple of days ago that the reporter that she said that to just so happened to be a Black woman. And I was thinking, yeah, she probably wouldn't have said that if it so happened to be a white man. Like, how freaking rude and abusive. Like, I like to say there's no such thing as a stupid question. And that just shows a defensiveness that, you know, you could use that as an opportunity to brag about how righteous the Trumpster Fire is and how, yes, thank you for asking. Of course, he's in full support of everyone's freedom of speech. But no, she had to slam her and insult her because she's unprofessional and she's a hack. She's a total freaking hack. She might look professional with all of her disgusting makeup and perfect hair, but my God, she's a hack. You know, she can fill the air with words, but they're kind of meaningless, shallow, hollow words because almost every single thing that comes out of her mouth is a straight up lie, just like Donnie. Yes, one of the only time I ever saw her talk. Oh, Caroline with a K. And I see your comment there about closet homosexuals. Sorry, I was called away for a bit. I'm glad you're still on. Aw, you're so nice. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being homosexual. There's really nothing wrong with being a closet homosexual as long as you're like clear within your own self and your own psyche and the people that matter to you the most, like your partner. But if you're such a closet case that you can't even admit it to yourself, and maybe you're married to someone of the opposite gender and have children because you're trying to hide the fact. I mean, that's just sad. And to me, it's dangerous. People who are like that are often wackadoodle, because they're not being their true selves. Like, there's nothing more important than just you being you and expressing yourself honestly and truthfully. I think that's the thing I appreciate the most about this forum. For me, having a YouTube channel, I did not realize until the day I started how flippin' honest I have to be with myself and with my audience about what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and what my experiences are. I think that for a lot of people that's what this process is like. It's almost like truth serum, because if you're going to stretch the truth a little bit, it's a slippery slope and you can stretch the truth a lot. But for sure, there's a lot of people in YouTube land and other media and social media that are quite the opposite, that the whole thing is just like a mask and a farce, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. Whoops. So yeah, I found that really fascinating, how much I felt like I just had to be my true authentic self. Like, because I guess before I did this, I pictured that I would be like a newscaster, like coming on and putting on a face or a story or something, because I've never done anything like this. Like, performing arts has never really been my thing. I did a little bit of performing arts, full disclosure, in college, and I loved it. I had a knack for it right away, which I always thought that the theater geeks were just geeks in high school. I never wanted to do theater. But it's interesting. You learn a lot about yourself. And I think when you don't have any experience acting, it's easy to think that actors are fake, that they fake emotion and that they fake their character and all that. But really, when you do it, for me anyway, I mean, I don't know if it's called method acting or what. I haven't done much of it. But when you get into character, you kind of connect with yourself that is that character, like, say, an 80-year-old man, like you have to connect with the part of yourself that can identify with that in order to really be a character and do anything with the craft. In my experience, I mean, I can only talk for myself, but yeah, people that are actors, it's not that they are fake, it's that they can experience this wide range of emotion. So, but why am I talking about actors? Because there's so many actors in the political arena right now. I mean, who is that one who is like, I don't know his name, but you guys know who I'm talking about. The really disgusting one who said a lot of really disgusting things about Vance, Luther, Bolter, and the victims. The guy who was just going off the rails saying that he had to be a Democrat. Some state senator who like runs from the crowds. Let me see. This will tell me. State senator who insulted the victims in the Minnesota shootings. Yep, Senator Mike Lee outrages Minnesotans with social media jabs about the Hortman Red Rum. What a disgusting freak. And then when he's like outside and there's journalists trying to talk to him and ask him questions, he's got his staffers like holding notebooks to block their view of his face with their cameras. It's like completely gangster, just ridiculous. Yeah, so he's the one who falsely claimed that the suspect was a Democrat, like before he had any information. And it's like it really doesn't matter so much whether he's a Democrat or a Republican. It doesn't matter so much whether the victims are Democrats or Republicans. What matters is that violence is not acceptable, and political violence especially is not acceptable. So I was looking up, because of the tank and the truck that ran over that 39-year-old woman in DC on Monday. I was looking up things about terrorism and how cars are used for terrorist attacks. Like, I mean, we've seen a lot of that, for instance, on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, the middle of the night in New Orleans, with that white pickup truck that ran into a bunch of people. And how come we never hear anything more about that? How come we never hear anything more about Matthew Livelsberger? I looked him up this morning, to get an update, and everything about him was from like January 4th was like the most recent. It happened on January 1st. That whole thing with how he like wrote his little mini manifesto that wasn't burned in his SWAT car that was burning up, but he had shot himself before he blew up the car. Like, really? Are you sure? Are you sure he did that to himself? Are you sure he shot himself and then blew up the car? Because that's sort of like shooting yourself twice almost. Huh. And what's most suspicious is that we don't get an update with an investigation. No word of it. The fact that it was in front of the Trump Tower in Vegas, the fact that it was a Tesla Cybertruck, and right in the midst of between the election day and the inauguration day, and us finding out that Elon's really our new president. Isn't that weird? What is weird? The thing about how we don't hear anything more about it. I mean, to me, it's that much more suspicious. Normally we would hear more and more about that, but I wanted to talk about, one of my mods called me up today to express some anger about how, when some of these people losing their lives are videotaped and there's eyewitnesses, law enforcement will say, well, we can't determine the nature and cause of the ending of life until we've conducted a full autopsy. But yet there's situations like Matthew Livelsberger or Virginia Giuffre or Little E, where they know exactly what happened as soon as it happens. They're just like, oh yeah, completely self misadventure, right? Well, what about an autopsy? What about Ivana? As soon as they got to the house, law enforcement were like, oh yep, fell down the stairs accidentally. Yep, we can tell, we can see that with our bare eyes. It's so obvious. But it's like, well, when they did an autopsy, there was something about maybe a heart attack. And there was also something about blunt force injury, which could be from falling downstairs, but that could also be from other things. So I think that's about it for today. The rest of it's all just water over the dam. Let's see. So yeah, I want to know more about the election security and oversight, and why there wasn't election security and oversight from jump. Like there almost always is. It's just, I threw in the towel really quick when this happened on election day, when the results came in. And how did Elon have the election results like 4 hours before anyone else? Unless he was the one making the election results, which I believe he was, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. But I threw in the towel right away because I thought, obviously, somebody like Putin is behind all this and there's nothing that can be done, or otherwise people would be fighting tooth and nail for a recount and verification, validation, and all that stuff. So I felt like it was mobster right away, and that it was kind of a lost cause. That if our country is being ruled by Tony Soprano, what you gonna do about it, huh? Anyway, thanks for being here. Yes, how we don't hear anything about it. Right. Some of your best evidence is timing, right? So again, like those two things happening on New Year's Day, New Year's morning, between the election and the inauguration. Timing is some of your best evidence in any case. Look at the timing of Vance Luther attacks. That was the morning of the parade and the No King's Day protests nationwide and worldwide. Because, to quote the FBI agent that I saw the really good interview with, I'm still going to look for that too. This was planned for a very long time. Oh, and there was another quote that when he sent his wife a text, "Dad went to war last night, get out of the area." He was more specific than that. In a text to his wife, he said something like, "I expect that people will be coming to the house with gunfire. I've done some really bad things and I don't want you guys to be there." So it seems so odd to me that the wife and the kids wouldn't just go straight to the police and say, "I don't know what he's done, but he's freaking out, and it sounds like we might need protection." But because her response was to get passports, cash, what else? A weapon and ammunition. That to me says that she had a pretty good idea of what he was doing. And of course, I guess he's like one of those preppers, like a doomsday prepper. And the homeschooling, not to stereotype homeschooling, but I guess they homeschooled all their 5 kids. But very interesting that his wife Jenny interned for Tim Walz in 2010. Very interesting that Tim Walz knew Vance Luther from the assignments that he had reappointed him to, because he already had the assignment from the previous governor. But what else do I want to say about that? And the 9,000 threats against congressmen and their families. I got to look that up. The 9,000 threats against congressmen and their families. Is that just like in a year? Let me see what Google says. 9,000 threats against congressmen and their families. Oh my goodness. In 2024 alone, U.S. Capitol Police investigated more than 9,000 threats. So yeah, this is in the news yesterday. So that's when I first saw this. But all I wrote down was 9,000 threats against congressmen and their families. I wasn't sure if it was in a year or what. And then February 3rd of 2025, it said that threats against members of Congress spiked in 2024 after dipping down considerably between 2021 and 2022. Wow. I'll read more about that. Swatting threats against Congress are becoming increasingly common. Yikes. Here's something that's 42 minutes old from The Economist. The attacks in Minnesota reflect a worrying trend. A police chief in North Carolina retired in May after getting violent threats over the death of a police dog. Well, yeah, people like myself included, we get really upset with dogs being victimized. Leave the freaking pooches out of it, man. I felt the same way about the election. And Anna B says, it is suspicious to me. I think she was in on the plan. Yeah, I think she was too. I mean, to whatever degree, she is definitely in on things. Like, wouldn't you text back like, what have you done, my dear? And again, if you're just like a normal person and your spouse texts you something like that, wouldn't you be completely freaked out? Not only in fear for your safety and your kids' safety, but for your spouse's safety. You'd be like, my goodness, what could be so bad? Like, what are you talking about? I would think that the FBI would have known him. I don't trust our FBI anymore. Yeah, I know some people are very suspicious of the police for not arresting the wife. At this point, I'm just super impressed by the police conduct in this case in Minnesota. From what I've seen across the boards, other than that one thing that I said at the beginning of the video, that I'm surprised that the female officer that tried to interact with him at that other senator's house, that she didn't follow him when he left. That all it said is that by the time backup got there, he had already fled the scene. Had she followed him, they could have prevented the deaths. And I wanted to just find that senator's name, that senator who did not get attacked by the Minnesota shooter, Vance Luther Bolger. What was her name? Whose house law enforcement first interacted with Vance Luther Bolger? First house law enforcement first interacted with John Luther Bolger. That's not his name, is it? Not John Luther. Vance Luther. Beolter. Is that right? No, that's not right. So he had a fantasy career in security, is what it says. Deeply religious and conservative. Stalked his victims like prey. But I want to find the name of that other senator. It will probably be in this one by one sec. So this is what it says. After the shooting at the Hoffman's home, acting U.S. Attorney Joseph Thompson said Bolter went to a state representative's home in Maple Grove. However, the lawmaker had been on vacation and was not home at the time. Bolter then allegedly moved on to the home of a state senator in New Hope. After learning about the shooting of the Hoffmans and Chaplin, a New Hope police officer went to the senator's home to do a wellness check. The officer arrived to find what appeared to be another officer's squad car, later identified as Bolter's vehicle, parked outside the home. The officer tried to engage in conversation with Bolter, but he did not respond. By the time more officers arrived, Bolter was gone. The FBI did not identify either of the two lawmakers whose homes Bolter allegedly targeted, though State Senator Ann Rest said in a statement on Monday that she's been made aware that Bolter's SUV was parked near her home Saturday morning. So that's who it is, Senator Ann Rest. I'm so grateful for the heroic work of the New Hope Police Department and its officers. Their quick action saved my life. I know, and I'm so grateful for that too, but I'm just sad that their quick action wasn't able to save the lives of Melissa and Mark Hortman. Is that how you say their name? Yeah, Melissa and Mark Hortman. After that, Thompson said Bolter then went to the Hortman's home in Brooklyn Park. Upon arrival, police officers saw Bolter several feet from the door. He drew his weapon and gunfire erupted before he rushed inside the house, firing at the front door. He then shot and killed the Hortmans. So that was wild. I didn't know that he killed them after the exchanging gunfire with law enforcement. The first reports were that he'd already unalived them and he was on his way out when they found him at the front door and exchanged gunfire. Federal investigators allege Bolter stalked his targets and planned his attacks carefully, researching the victims and their families well as conducting surveillance on them for an extensive period of time. This was a political assassination, Thompson said Monday. So maybe that's why he had the house, the room that he rented from the guys that he lived with for a couple of days a month. Maybe that was just so that he could stalk these people. At his hearing Monday afternoon, Bolter said he could not afford an attorney, adding he had about $20,000 to $30,000 in savings, though he also said he owned his home and had 7 cars to his name. The judge said for now, Bolter would be appointed a federal defender. Next hearing was set for 11 a.m. June 27th, so 9 days from now. And then it goes on, but I'll stop that there because what I wanted to say is that I had, I think, wrong information yesterday when I said that his wife had $50,000 cash on her person when she was pulled over. That was $10,000. And I thought the information that I had shared yesterday was that he had $10,000 cash, and that's how he bought the car and the e-bike from the guy. It was a Buick. But apparently he randomly met up with this stranger. I mean, randomly, we'll see how random that is, right? This guy with a Buick and an e-bike. And then they went to a cash machine and he pulled out $2,200 and the guy gave him the Buick and the e-bike for the $2,200. That's weird. Was it really a random? Nah, that's unlikely. What are the chances? I think it was early in the morning by then, like maybe 6 or 7 in the morning. Yeah, they need to investigate that further, huh? I mean, my suspicion is that Vance Bolter is part of a cell. That's my suspicion, that he wasn't just a maverick, a rando. He could be. I mean, he kind of seems like a rando maverick, but I mean, that's pretty extensive. Where do you get the time, the energy, and then that he has all this money? So like they try to say that he's broke, but then he's got $20,000 or $30,000 in savings, and he owns his own home and 7 cars. That's not broke by my standards at all. That's not even close to broke. It's like the opposite of broke. But where did he get that money? Where did he get the money? Was somebody funding his research? I got questions. She was in a frozen shock phase. Oh, the police officer, she might have been, and especially because she's a female and she's alone, she might have been afraid of following him. But that would be really unfortunate, because honestly, you shouldn't be in the job if you're afraid of following a suspect when you're at work protecting the community. Because I mean, it's not the law enforcement's fault. They were doing a really good job overall, but had she followed him, the Hortmans would, and their dog would probably still be alive. But then she might not be, right? I mean, it's hard to say the woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? That does sound unlikely. I agree with your assessment. Well, Annabes, we do think a lot alike. So we're Justice A to Z, and your name starts with an A and ends with a Z. Weird. Another coinky dink. So what I was saying, I didn't finish that thought about how timing is some of your best evidence. You know, going back to the New Year's Day truck situations, going to the morning of the No Kings protests and the military parade. And some of your other best evidence is the lack of evidence. That is some of the very best evidence. You know, like, let's just say, you know, I'm still upset about the Suzanne Morphew case. I'm sure some of my viewers are too. Let's just say, like, the lack of Barry Morphew hiring a private investigator to figure out what happened to his wife. That's good evidence right there, in my opinion. Woo, never thought of that. Never thought of what? Please do specify. I mean, I just said a few things, so I know that was just like in the last 60 seconds or so. The lack of evidence, or something about the timing. Oh, the timing of the No Kings Day protests and the military parade and this killing spree. I mean, the man's a serial killer. He's completely insane. He's so crazy. And when you look at that picture of him when he was apprehended, and he's like looking off to the side, and all you can see is the whites of his eyes, and he actually looks just like the mask that he was wearing when he went to the people's doors. What a super, super sick, soulless individual. I mean, to be that upset about politics that you're going to take people's lives. And really, I mean, that's kind of self-injurious behavior, because if you're going to take people's lives, you know that you could be unalived in the process, while these people are trying to defend themselves or with law enforcement. I mean, that's such a shitty thing to do to your freaking family. What a rat bastard. Speaking of timing, right when you said that, an ad came on. Oh, you gotta love it, YouTube. I know. I kind of thought that just by posting last night that I was going to be doing this live with the lawsuit. I thought we'll see if YouTube intervenes with that. So I'm very grateful that I've been able to be on this live with you guys for the last 2 hours and 15 minutes, and that we haven't lost the stream or anything. But that's why I was trying to be so careful and just saying little e, little t, not even their first names. This is so good. Carmex. Are you guys familiar with Carmex? It's really good brand of lip stuff. And this one is sugar plum. It's delicious. I'm so into my smells and my lotions and potions. You know how much I hate Les Wex, but Bath and Body Works does have a really good line of lotion and body sprays and room fresheners. So this one is their aromatherapy natural essential oils, tea tree and peppermint. So I thought, since I'm still in my early recovery from that whole nausea thing. Ooh, it's so good. Tea tree and peppermint. He does look like the mask he wore. Yeah, I know. He's so creepy. You know, and there's some pictures of him where he actually looks like a very handsome individual. But just throw it all the way. I'm all the way. It's like, you can't love your kids, you can't love your family and do something that heinous, because look what you're doing to them. You know, like I said, look what you're doing to yourself. You're trashing your own life. Even if you don't get caught, you're going to be living like a refugee. I mean, thank goodness he was caught. It could have been like a Ted Kaczynski thing that took years and years and years. Been with live today chatting, but it wasn't going through. I think I figured it out. Hello, Jazzy Zena. Well, yeah, I saw you at the beginning, but you know what? It reverted back to top chat again. That is so weird. It's like I put it on live chat. So I apologize if I missed anybody's comments. Yes, that is good that you haven't said their names. I did once. Remember, I said bleep afterwards. But yeah, I mean, he is the president, so I guess you're probably allowed to say his name. Yeah, I mean, when I first read that lawsuit, I thought it does sound a little preposterous, but after reading through the whole thing, and especially because I hadn't read the affidavits, like the one from Tiffany Doe, I think it's 100% solid. I think it's 1,000% solid, in my opinion. And to think that that's out there on the internet, that you can Google it yourself with what I put into the search engine, just I think 4 simple words: Jane Doe grape, and then the last names of little t and little e. So 5 words. That was what I Googled, and I found a lot. And that was the thing I wanted to share, was the actual document. I'm so glad I read through that too. Because, you know, it's different when you're just like scanning, especially for me, when I'm scanning a lawsuit. I mean, I'm not really absorbing it because a lot of it is just legalese and it's repetitive and it's kind of meaningless. But when I'm reading it out loud, it sinks in differently. Just like with the chronology of the events from the night or the morning of the spree killing, and then realizing that there were 4 houses and that he exchanged the gunfire with the police and then shot through the door. They could see him taking the life of Mark Hortman. I think there are windows around the door. It's a really nice house. I was kind of surprised that the senator's house where they survived, his house was very average. Melissa Hortman's house, I mean, she'd been a senator for like 21 years, I think. And I think her husband had a really good job too. They had a really nice house. So I think that there are windows around the door, but maybe because he shot through the door, maybe they could just see through the door him shooting Mark. And then he was out of view and they couldn't see where he went and they didn't know who else was in the house. Thank goodness the kids weren't home. You know, the kids in their 20s probably live elsewhere. But just like Hope from the first house, the ones who survived, the lucky ones, their names are very similar. That's one reason why it's hard to keep them all straight. Hoffman and Hortman. Yeah, there's only like 3 letters difference, but the same number of letters and everything. Wow. So Hope Hoffman, I don't think she lived at home, but I think she was visiting, being 22. And yeah, like my 23-year-old, she comes and stays a night or a weekend kind of every couple of weeks right now because she's not in school for the summer. When she's in school, you know, I might go months without seeing her because she's so caught up in her studies and her social life. She's very diligent, both with academics and balancing a good social life, a good healthy social life. So yeah, I hadn't thought about how effing close their names are. Hortman and Hoffman. That is very wild. Okay, we're going to sign off. It's been lovely, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, Patricia Moss is back. Sorry. It does sink in when you read it out loud. It does. It's almost like you're seeing it from a different angle, but also just like when you watch a movie twice, you pick up different things. I mean, I'm amazed how I can watch a video that's really good, that I'm riveted and I'm paying attention. And then sometimes I'll just replay it, the whole thing. Not often, because there's usually other things I want to check out. But there's usually something that I totally missed. So it's good to do. And this is why I really like taking notes when I'm watching videos or reading articles, because a lot of times I'm thinking this is so important. There's no way I won't remember that this is like a main thing I want to talk about. And then if I don't have it written down, I'm almost guaranteed that I won't remember, sadly. It's a lot of information. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of going a mile a minute with this stuff. But again, I feel like I kind of operate between like couch potato sloth and overdrive. I'm like one or the other. I don't do a whole lot in between. I try to do the in between because that's healthier. That's where real life is. But I kind of do my best under stress. So that's one of the reasons why I was really cut out for that crisis and commitment work, because it's a lot of pressure and you have to think on your feet and you have to perform and you have to be assertive and you have to be confident because it's life and death. I mean, I was going to say I'm not a first responder. I don't think I'm cut out to be a first responder, but that is kind of like the first responder of mental health, and not something I would have ever guessed I would have any kind of inclination to do. Even when I first learned about it through a friend of mine who did it at an agency where I was an art therapist, I was just like, yeah, I could never do that. And then it paid more. So and because my friend was in that department, she got me interested. I was interested in making the more money. And, I mean, there was a lot of status around it. Like you were kind of considered the gods of the mental health in the state of Washington. I don't even know if they still do that with the county designated mental health professional. If they do, it's got a different name. But, back then in the 90s, it was only Washington State and Alaska that had those mental health, kind of the middlemen. In most states, police can do those assessments, but, they really need more mental health training than they can get, or doctors, and they really need more legal training than they can get. So, it was really all about preserving the safety of the client and the community while also preserving the civil rights of the client. So, because when you put somebody into a 72-hour hold, they're basically under arrest. It's like a mental health arrest. You're stripping them of their civil rights. You're stripping them of their freedom. And I think it's imperative that you have, I guess, an expert opinion on that. I mean, the reason it started in Washington State was because there were so many of these doctors that would call their buddies, their male doctor friends, and say, my wife is a pain in the butt. Could you help me? I need 2 doctors to say that she needs to be locked in the loony bin so that I can live my best life with my girlfriend and not have to pay alimony. And there were so many doctors' wives locked up at Western State Psychiatric Facility in Pierce County, Washington in the 70s. That is why they decided to have that profession and that law and that avenue, was because there were too many doctors abusing their power. There, like the Western State Psychiatric Hospital was just filled with all these doctors' wives. Is that so sick? I mean, so much of our mental health background in our country, well, and in the world, goes back to major sexism with Freud and men abusing their power, men sexually abusing women. Just like in the freaking lawsuit. And that's not a woman. That was a kid. That was a 13-year-old. I mean, I have a 13-year-old right now. It just horrifies me to think about that. Absolutely horrific. I would kill them. Pity the fool that messes with my kids. I mean, my kids are pretty tough too. I do pity the fool that tries to mess with my kids, because they wouldn't be having it. They would definitely know what to do. I think I've trained them all very well, especially the girls, but the boys too, of course. Wait, huh? After I figured it out, your whole show started over again. So now I've been lost the present chat. LOL. I get this someday soon. Oh, what a pain in the rear end, Patricia. And yeah, it usually takes like 12 to 24 hours before you can see the live chat and the replay. I guess they're supervising it, proofreading it to make sure there's not cursey words and crap like that. I am the same way at work. I'm on it. At home, I'm a sloth. since I've been sick, I even more of a sloth right now. That is so horrible. It isn't it? It's cray cray. Yeah, once I like sit on the couch, I'm kind of toast. Like I just grow roots and attach myself to the couch. But sometimes I try to do that because I need to just chill and sit still. That's when I'll like paint my nails or paint my toenails just to try to make myself not be on the go. Usually, even when I'm tired, if I start like, weeding outside, I can just like weed for like 5 hours or something. It's crazy. And it's hard to stop myself even after the 5 hours. I think that's just the addict in me. Whatever it is that I'm doing, I get addicted to. Like right now, I'm addicted to being on this live stream with you guys. Oh, look, I'm wearing a shorter skirt. I usually wear things that won't reveal any skin when I'm on live. Um, and that is why, because I might not realize what's showing. Anyway, yeah, I should wrap it up. It's 2.5 hours. This is like one of my longest lives ever. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. But it's so much fun. I just want to stay on forever and ever. Let's just chat away. I'll take questions. Seriously, I will if you have any questions. Oh, you know what? I put a thing, a super chat goal. Like the goal is just one $5 super chat, and I'm not asking anybody to donate money. Seriously, I'm not. I'm just remembering to mention it because that was what I put as the if we reached the goal, that then I'd do Q&A. But heck, man, I'll do Q&A anyway because I just thought that would be fun. I've wanted to do that with you guys. If you have any questions, I may say I'm not at liberty to discuss that right now, but I would imagine that most of your questions would be pretty tame and that I'd be more than happy to share. So I'll give you a second. I'll drink some coffee before I do log off. And yeah, I need to up my game to get more. The income thing with the YouTube is insane. And the more I learn about it, it's like you got to do like Patreon and TikTok. Those are much better money makers. But I'm just not inclined to diversify platforms. And I keep saying that I should and I will, but I like to keep things simple. So I don't know. I also want to keep on doing this. So that's the thing is that I mentioned how I had almost been hired for not a full-time job, but a half-time job. And I thought if I got that position that I would still be able to do my YouTube in as much as I like to. But I was also kind of concerned because it's hard to keep up with doing my YouTube in as much as I like to, even without a part-time job, So, I mean, I do things that I can create an income with, but I don't like to put time and effort into other things because this can be such a satisfying forum. I mean, there's just so much to learn, so much to learn. And I'm just talking cases. I mean, I could kind of care less about all the stuff, the technology. Like knowing how to show videos and photographs, do a split screen. I just found out that freaking StreamYard costs $90 a month. I thought it was like $25 a month, and I still hadn't gotten it. Just like the ad-free YouTube, I think is like $35 a month, and I still haven't gotten it. But I guess with the ad-free YouTube, you can have your whole family on it, so that would totally be worth it. But that's like every month, so by the end of the year, that's like $700. Crap adds up. But I couldn't believe StreamYard had gotten so expensive. I was pretty sure it was like $25 a month when I first started doing this 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago almost. But we are coming up on in 2 months, we'll be at the 3-year mark anniversary of Kylie Rodney's misadventure. I like that term. That's a new term to me as of like a week ago, the misadventure. It kind of covers it, doesn't it? Do you think that little T will ever get impeached? Good question, Anna Bees. I don't want to get my hopes up. I am an eternal optimist. I do like to have my feet on the ground and live in reality. I think that he will suffer the consequences of his actions. I think that it will catch up with him. I think that the more time that passes, the more he ratchets up the offenses and the more trouble he'll be in the end. Yes, 3 years. So that's what I believe. So every time things get worse, which it just seems like they continue to get worse. Like one of my favorite sayings with the 12-step programs is you hit bottom when you quit digging. And it's like, he just keeps finding a new bottom. He just keeps going lower and lower and lower. And, each time he does, I'm kind of like, oh, and then I'm like, wait, yay. Because just that whole philosophy of that things have to get better or things have to get worse before they get better so that people notice. I mean, he's lost so much of his support base. I mean, I think a lot of people that went to the No Kings events were people that voted for him, from my understanding anyway. That may or may not be accurate, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know people who were full on in that camp that totally did a 180 over the last handful of years. I think J6 did that for some people. It didn't do it for as many people as I would have thought. And I don't know. I think, I mean, he's just crumbling. His whole like mental state is just crumbling. Like he's just like crazy man, crazy angry toddler, right? But I love that question. And to my understanding, being impeached isn't even that big of a deal because he has been impeached twice, right? But I guess it's like this process. It's like being impeached is kind of like being sued. It doesn't mean that you lost. It just means that you got sued. You might have won. So I think that being impeached, then you have like the articles of evidence, and then you have to have the Senate uphold the impeachment. So he's been impeached a couple of times where they've done it's like launching the investigation. And then both times the Senate didn't hold it up. Thank you, Mitch McConnell. And, like when Nixon was impeached, because I think the only other two presidents that have been impeached that I know of are Nixon and Clinton, at least in my lifetime. Maybe there's more going further back in history. But when Nixon was impeached, it caused him to resign because there was so much at stake. And when Clinton was impeached, I want to say that the Senate maybe even voted for the impeachment, but it doesn't really mean anything. Like nothing really happened. I mean, it was just like egg on his face, basically, and nothing else. So, it's pretty crazy how untouchable a person is when they're in that position. And really the only guardrails or safeguards that there are, I believe, are the Senate, the House of Representatives, and governors. So each state's leader has more power in their state than the president, maybe. But then the courts, because you've got your three branches of government. What are they? Your executive, your judicial, and your other. So I think that he's the executive, the president. The judicial would be the courts, and then Congress would be the third. That would be the Senate and the representatives. So it seems like a lot of Republican senators are finally waking up and smelling the coffee. But then, like, I think it was Lisa Murkowski who said it a few days ago that she's a Republican and that she's scared to vote against the way Trump pressures the Republicans to vote. So she said it out loud, but I think that a lot of Republican senators and representatives are afraid to vote against the grain. But then we have people, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, some of these real whack jobs that are finally going against him. So when even they have more common sense than him, it's scary. Legislative, thank you. What did I say? Executive, judicial, and legislative. Thanks. Awesome. Yes, twice, but the Senate, Mitch McConnell didn't hold it up. It's just freaking nuts. And then, his sister-in-law got drowned in a Tesla a year and a half ago on her property. That does not seem like a random mishap, a random misadventure. It seems like a choreographed misadventure. Just with the whole China shipping billionaire family and Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine, being the first one to resign after the insurrection because of the insurrection. And then I've said this before, but some people have probably not caught it, that she was on the board of directors, is it? The board at the Kennedy Center, Elaine McConnell. So when Trump fired everybody from the Kennedy Center and appointed himself king of the Kennedy Center, that was, I think, a real slam against the Kennedys and against Elaine McConnell, or I don't know if she has Mitch McConnell's last name. Was their last name? Her sister's name is Angela Chow. Elaine Chow, Angela Chow. And yeah, that whole thing with the Kennedys, you got RFK and all that cray-cray. I could go on, but we're trying to sign off, so we'll sign off. Would never buy a Tesla. Well, soon they'll be paying you to take ownership of a Tesla. I mean, oh man, those Swatsta cars are so ugly. The Cybertrucks, they're so ugly. They look just like tanks. So, and I think that's the point. The point is to make you feel like you're at war. I can't understand how he was able to get the Kennedy Center. Well, because he's El Presidente and he's abusing his power. But yeah, that was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. And just like the way he's decorated the Oval Office, the way Melania like ripped up the Rose Garden in his first administration. And the Kennedy Center is like not supposed to be super fancy. It's supposed to be about the talent, and it's supposed to be about community, performing arts. It's not like a dog and pony show, but for Trumpster Fire, everything's a freaking dog and pony show. It's all just like the White House apprentice or maybe like the White House bachelor, because we know Melania ain't got nothing to do with the guy anymore. She won't even let his pinky touch her hand. I did get a clip of that into the description of the video yesterday. If you haven't seen it, I'll try to put it in the description here today too. So I am going to sign off for realsies. I'm not trying to make my longest video of all time, but I probably just did, because 2 hours and 45 minutes. I don't think I've gone longer than that. But I don't want to make it too hard for anybody to watch, especially me, because I do like to try to review all my videos. And when they're long, it's harder to get that done, because that's when I get all my links in there too, because I might have forgotten what I said I was going to put in there. So it's kind of imperative that I watch the video to make sure that I get all the links to all the things that I say. I will put a link in the description, or sometimes I say I will try to put a link in the description in case I don't get there. But anyway, love and light, you guys. Thanks a million bazillion. And tomorrow is Thursday. The next day is Friday. I will try to get a video tomorrow or Friday. It might be rough. I'm pretty sure I can do one, at least one tomorrow or Friday. I probably won't be able to do both. So fingers crossed that I at least get one, and fingers double crossed that I can do two, that I can do tomorrow and the next day. But I think it's going to be Friday. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow, just to give you a heads up. Thanks a million. Love and light. Have a great day. And I'm doing it. I am signing off. Take care.